Welcome to the Two Opinionated Brothers podcast with Smart Jarvis and Big Sam. This podcast, opinions, and views are simply those of the two opinionated brothers. So don't trip.
Big Sam, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Jarvis. How about yourself?
I can't complain. Lachey, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you all?
We're glad to finally be back in the studio. I've been working hard, taking care of some other things. So
Have you really?
yeah, I've been working real hard. They didn't care nothing about this podcast, but we're back now, Sam.
Oh.
My schedule is free from here on out. Okay?
Am I supposed to care about your schedule, Jarvis?
Well, I thought you cared about me as an individual.
I care about the podcast, and I'm glad to see you, man.
I'm a member
you
of the
look a little
podcast.
different, man.
What do I look? What's different about
You're
me?
wearing a hat. You very seldom wear hats to the podcast.
Can I just jump in and say I like both of you all's attire?
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Why do you have that shirt?
In fact, well, because I was reminded this morning that well, I know this is a podcast, and so
It is
you
a
can't,
podcast.
yeah, so you can't really see.
You can describe it.
But I was reminded this
No need to
morning
describe.
that I crossed this organization in 2000. That's 19 years ago, man. Spring
Okay.
of 2000. That's 19 years. Gamma Psi Gamma Fraternity Incorporated. So
Okay.
I'm proud to reach that milestone. You
What's
of
the milestone?
19 years. Being a member of an organization for 19 years.
Okay.
And to still be able to actively participate and support it.
I don't think you support them.
That's
I think
fine.
you're trying to get some cream by putting this shirt on, but I don't think you support
What's
them.
cream?
Oh, never mind. That's some bro talk. You don't know nothing about that. Hey, let's get into the topics, man. What we starting off with? Jussie Smollett?
Oh, that's interesting.
You don't want to talk about
That
it?
got your attention?
I mean, it's all over the news. People are talking about it. Some people are excited. Some people are upset.
Are you talking about it?
Not really. I mean, it was a fiasco to me.
Okay.
But
Well,
it's
I thought
interesting.
it was interesting.
Okay. Well, what's so interesting about it, Sam?
Well, a lot of things are interesting about it. I tend to look at things from 3 or 4 different angles, and the first thing I thought is, what if Mr. Smollett, is that his name?
Smollett.
Smollett, yeah. What if he was
that's
white? What if he was white? And go ahead and ask me, what does race have to do with this, right?
Well, no, race has to do something to do with everything.
So if
I'm
he
not
was
gonna ask that
white,
question.
well, maybe we need to tell the people what the story is.
I'm pretty sure everyone knows what the story is, unless they've been under a rock.
Okay.
I mean,
Well,
I've been working very hard for the last several months, and I know what the story is.
Well, all charges that were dropped, right? Do you agree that all charges were dropped?
They were dropped. What do you mean? Do I agree?
Well, because you may have a different set of
fact.
facts.
That's a fact.
You ever heard of fake news?
I don't have alternative facts.
You might have. So you agree that all charges against this
All
young man
charges
were
were
dropped?
dropped. 16 charges. What's your point? What's interesting about it?
Well, the mixed response, from our community. I don't too much care what others are thinking about it, but I like to deal with our community. Some people are congratulating him. Brother beat the system. One finally got away. And all those
Yeah.
things. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, I got it. You gave it to him. In fact, I was watching something earlier, and a comedian joked that he dug up Johnny Cochran and got his legal defense together, and that's how he got off. I think he said, if you can't find a noose, let him loose, I think was the tagline of the joke. Yeah, exactly right. How poor humor is that, right?
Dude.
But there's people celebrating the victory.
They are.
And so I thought to myself, if this young man was Caucasian and these same situation happened, would we as an African-American community, those of us who agree that he was legitimately, adjudicated, would we still have the same opinion? What say you?
Probably not. I mean, these things always fall along race lines. We know that. I mean, but probably if he was white, they wouldn't have charged him with 16 felonies, right?
I don't know the law. If he committed 16 crimes.
Well, I mean, again, I'm sure it was overkill to charge him with 16 felonies. It was kind of similar to me to the, totally different case, but it was to me it was like, the O.J. Simpson trial, how everybody kind of knew O.J. was guilty, but the police and the prosecutors were kind of overzealous, so they were going out of their way to try to stick it to him, and they end up shooting themselves in the foot. So I think it was kind of similar here, like 16 felonies. Like, I mean, he probably did something stupid, boneheaded, but 16 felonies, like, come on, man.
Do you believe he created this? Do you believe that this was a hoax?
I mean, I don't, you never really know because you weren't there. You don't know everything that transpired, but my gut says, yeah, he did it. It was stupid. And he got fortunate for whatever reason, whether it was money, whether it was some type of conglomerate that was behind him, whether it was Hollywood, different communities, different whatever that were supporting him and pushing his release, whatever it was. That's probably why he got out, because I'm pretty sure from what I saw, the little information that was leaked out or that they posted and then they had to pull back, they pretty much had a good amount of evidence to be able to find him guilty beyond reasonable doubt. Now, I don't know about 16 felonies.
That's interesting because right before I came in, I was reading an article that suggested, and forgive me, I don't know the lady's name, but I do know.
If you read the article, why don't you know her
because
name?
her name wasn't important to me. What stuck out to me was that she was the chief of staff for Michelle Obama. You know who that is?
I've heard of her.
Yeah, that was her chief of staff.
We don't need that.
And
please.
she reached out. She reached out to the I think her name was Kim Woods, Kim Scott.
I don't know.
The prosecutor, the one who made the decision to drop the charges.
Yeah.
Or to not go forward with the charges. And she was the one that actually reached out and said, this is a friend of the family.
Who was a friend of the family?
Jussie Smollett.
Was a friend of whose family?
The lady who was Michelle Obama's chief of staff.
Was friends with Jussie Smollett?
Was a friend of the family.
Oh.
And encouraged her to be lenient in
That's
the prosecution.
So let me just jump in. I was watching a clip, and the judge, she has a show, and I can't remember her name, but she was saying how he was initially, I read a lot and do a lot. He was initially charged with making a false report, and the judge was saying that there's a lot of people that make false reports.
Right.
Actually, we probably know someone who's made a false report by
absolutely.
friend, family, or whatever, and she felt like it was overkill. And how everything transpired, it was for everything that happens in Chicago. For them to go after him,
it was overkill.
Is it overkill?
Two things can be true, right? He was stupid, and he
Definitely.
should have been punished with some type of fine and the humiliation in the public,
Which he paid.
Of making a hoax, and then also there's no way they should have tried to charge him with 16 felonies. I mean, come on.
Well, I
That was
read somewhere
ridiculous.
that the Chicago Police Department spent over $150,000 in overtime. Trying to investigate.
Well, again, that's because they were being
A false
overzealous.
report.
That's because they were being, I think, a little overzealous in 16 felonies.
Well, I think maybe
you caught him. You had the guys that he paid to beat him up. You had their statements. You had a transaction of a check. I think it was like for $3,500. We've kind of caught you, dude. We're going to charge you a fine. We're not going to investigate this for weeks or days. It's a misdemeanor. Whatever. I don't know what is filing a false report a felony or a misdemeanor.
Well, I don't know if it's a felony, but I do know that using the mail, U.S. Postal Service, to squander or to peddle.
So I saw a lot of people
incorrect
having
information is a felony, which can be prosecuted by the federal government. So I'm hoping that Donald Trump will get involved.
Why are you talking about Donald Trump?
With the
Of
Justice
course he's
Department.
gonna bring him up.
With the Justice Department. Who's the head of the state? Who's the head of the
We're
U.S.
talking
Postal
about
Service?
Jussie Smollett right now.
Exactly.
So
we're talking about the fact. But you two seem to can't find anything wrong with what he did. Well, maybe it was a crime.
I just
maybe
said there was something wrong with it.
No,
maybe it wasn't that
What are you
big of a
talking about?
crime. Maybe
It wasn't
we could
that big of a
overlooked it.
deal.
Now, if the police
general.
department had not, if they would have just been like, yeah, okay, Mr. Smollett, you say someone whooped you and put a noose around your neck and said, "Make America,
America
great."
great again.
We're gonna file it, Chapter
Yeah, yeah.
13. File 13.
has
and we'll-
imagination for
People would have been upset.
We'll
They
get
would have been
around
upset.
to it in a
Yeah.
few
They
weeks
would
to
have been
see
upset.
what
You're
happened.
right. You're right.
So maybe they were a little sensitive and said, well, let's go out and hit the nail on the head, spend $150,000. We're not going to tolerate racism, sexism.
I agree with all that.
But he's
I
done
agree with all-
community services and
I
paid
agree with all that.
$10,000.
What I'm saying is,
That's not good enough?
He's already done community.
Yeah, he did it this past
I think he
Saturday.
had to do
Actually,
2 days. That was a
he
joke.
did this past
What
Saturday.
I'm saying is, I agree with you. Hey, Mr. Smollett, we're going to drop the charges. We need $150,000 from you, which is what we spent in overtime to, chase down these false claims, and slap them with a misdemeanor, make them do some community service, and move on. I'm just saying the 16 felonies was a little extreme, dude.
It was a stretch.
So here's the question.
I'm sorry.
Here's the question. So how do you think this is going to affect his career going forward? Or do you don't care about that either?
I don't know. Did he have a career, or was he just
was
a
on the
power?
show,
Was in
Empire,
power?
Empire, man.
Empire. Yeah. So before that, what did he have a career?
I never heard of him before
Exactly.
that show.
So,
Lachey, you heard of him?
He's an artist as well.
What kind of
he's
artist?
He paints.
no, he sings. He's an R&B
Sing- oh, he
artist.
sings
Sings for who? What song?
He
What's
has
his
a-
song?
Nobody.
He had
Before the show, what song did he have?
I don't know before the show, but he on the Empire
So
soundtrack.
Empire kind of
Yeah, but of course
jump-started a
he
singing
had
career
to be.
for him.
Yeah. It launched a lot of things for him. So this is what I've saw a lot of people discussing, and I I like for you guys to tackle it. They're saying black people were never satisfied. He got off, but a lot of times we don't get off. So should we celebrate him getting off?
Well, probably what happens is that when you find yourself, when I say yourself, I'm talking about black people, on the short end of the stick more times than not, you'll find yourself rooting for people even when they're wrong.
Yeah,
right?
I get that.
So O.J. Simpson, we pretty much knew he killed her, right? But black people had been treated so poorly by the police for so long, and they had witnessed white people getting off for crimes that, you pretty much, you see the policeman shoot a guy on camera, he still gets off, you figure out a way. And so they were like, a black person got off. So it really wasn't about, Nicole Brown Simpson or the murder. It was just about getting a win. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's the same thing, the same type of concept with R. Kelly or Bill Cosby. We kind of know that, R. Kelly likes young girls. We kind of know that Bill Cosby was giving women drugs. Now, I also think that there was some poor judgment on those women's part to be going to a married man's hotel and taking drugs with him.
We're not gonna go there.
Well, I mean, we might as well go there.
But Jarvis thinks the women are somewhat responsible for what happened.
Well, I didn't say they were responsible. I said they were irresponsible in that I've got two little sisters, so I would tell my little sister, if a guy invites you over his house and asks you to do drugs and stuff like that, let's not do that.
Well, it may not have been, just to jump in because I'm a woman, that may not have been the initial conversation, because I've made poor decisions. And
have you willingly taken drugs?
No, I'm not. But I'm not saying we don't know every situation. I agree with that, but we don't know every situation.
We know those situations.
Well, them going to his house and something transpiring.
We knew that he was married. We knew that they took some drugs. They shouldn't have done that. We agree with that, right?
Well, no, I agree with that, but I'm just saying,
it's
going
okay
over there.
It's okay to say you shouldn't take drugs.
I mean, yeah, but
it's okay to say that. That's not victim blaming.
But I don't disagree with them.
I
don't disagree with them going over there because I've made a poor decision. Now, after you make that poor decision, there's other decisions to be made. Are you going to stick around? But let's not blame the women or say they had made a poor decision on the fact of he's a predator, because that's what he is. We're not going to do that.
So again, it's okay for us to say that the guy was wrong, he's a rapist or predator or whatever. That's okay to say that. We all recognize that. And it's also okay to say, hey, just a cautionary tale for women in general. There's certain things that you may want to do, right? Like I would tell my little sisters, for example, if you're at a party and you have a drink and you put it down to go to the bathroom, you leave it unattended, don't come back and drink that drink, right?
And I get that. Cover it up. I get that.
So it's okay to say things as a cautionary tale, and that doesn't mean that, oh, she left her drink down, somebody slipped something in it, she came back and drunk it, it's her fault. No, it's not her fault. It's still the predator's fault, right? But we want to use that as a cautionary tale to say, don't make these type of mistakes because these are the things that can happen. There's nothing wrong with that.
I agree.
Okay.
Nothing wrong with that.
Because I don't want anybody sending me inboxes talking about.
Here you go with the inbox.
I'm blaming women for getting attacked or something.
Well, you said they're partly responsible.
Okay, well, that's not what I said. I said there was some irresponsibility on their part.
But they were also kids.
No, I'm talking about Bill Cosby. I'm not.
I thought you were talking about R. Kelly.
I'm not talking about R. Kelly.
Oh,
we're not talking about minors.
Okay. I thought you were talking about R. Kelly. Okay.
I said Bill Cosby.
No, well, you made a reference of both of them.
Don't come in here on my podcast trying to make me look bad. We're not
quiet.
talking about minors.
I'm hoping that, again, I'm hoping that the federal government prosecutes Mr. Smollett. Bill Cosby's already in jail. Bill Cosby's
Why do you
already
want to prosecute him?
Well, because Bill's in jail.
I mean, he was wrong, so
he was wrong.
He should have been
Bill's
punished.
in jail.
He's been punished.
R. Kelly's in a downward spiral.
I think his punishment.
I don't expect. R. Kelly's he's getting ready to crash and burn.
I mean,
it's very weak. It was very weak, and I think a point needs to be made out of Mr. Smollett. I really think he gets the whooping that he deserves.
Guys,
Well, no,
the police
well,
officers that walk, there's
I'm
always a
saying
point
is-
made with black men.
Well, what
I don't
I'm-
want to hear that.
What
Is
I'm
he
saying
black?
is, what I'm disappointed. What I'm disappointed
Smollett,
is,
is that an African American name?
He likes
it's
it.
probably
the way
a
the
slave
court handled
master.
him, I don't know if he's
It's
black
probably
or not.
it's probably a slave
Yeah.
slave name.
Oh my
Okay, is that
God.
what it is?
What I'm seriously though, he I think his punishment was very weak, and I think that people should have been upset with him because there are people out there that are really being attacked and are really victims, right? And he's sitting here. It's kind of a slap in the face. It's people in the LGBTQ community that are really going through these things. That's what it was interesting. I didn't see, or maybe I just hadn't been paying attention. I hadn't seen a real big backlash from the LGBTQ community in reference to him and this false accusation. I think that's something they should have spoke out about because there's people in that community that really go through these type of things, right? And for you to be sitting there making a joke about it, making a mock to try to boost your career or whatever your reasoning was for it, if you were trying to boost your career or make Trump look bad, whatever it was, it was making a mockery of serious situations that transpire. So anyway, I don't know, man. That's your guy. What I want to talk about is this. This is very important to me because I'm a highly educated individual. I want to talk about the college scandal, the interest scandal. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah.
Parents paying to get their kids into college.
As much as $6 million, I heard.
I guess when you got it like that.
As much as $6 million. Yeah.
But and my thing is, if my mom or dad have $6 million to pay someone to let me into college, why am I even going to college? Just give me that $6 million and let me be an entrepreneur or whatever. Why am I going to college?
So you think parents of millionaires shouldn't go to college?
Children.
I'm sorry,
Children
children
of parents who are
children's
millionaires.
whose parents are millionaires. I'm not as educated as you. So go slow with me.
Clearly.
Children's whose parents are millionaires should not desire college.
No, I didn't say
Their
that.
parents shouldn't
I didn't say
desire
that.
for them
But
to
I'm
go to
just saying,
college.
if my mom is willing to write a check for $6 million for me to go to a school, that means she's got far more than that $6 million that she's writing a check for, right?
So say you. It could have been her last $6 million.
You think that's the last $6 million?
Yeah, I mean, lots of times my parents and my mom told me all the time growing up, I gave you my last.
When you wake up in the morning, do you say to yourself, I'm going to be an asshole today? Or do you just, does it just come natural?
Is that directed to me?
Certainly it's not their last $6 million, right? If they're writing
I
a
don't
check.
know.
You don't know.
I'm saying it could be.
What do you think about the scandal, please, sir?
Well, I think that you know what I think it's a disgrace. I'm going to tell you. I think that it's a disgrace, and it does. And
it really is.
And the worst part of it is that it comes from the very people whom a lot of our young people look up to. These actors and actresses and sports figures and politicians and so on and so forth. And we aspire to be them, and we look up to them and the life that they live, and to see, now cheating and all of that. I mean, that's whatever. I guess
you ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
You ain't cheating, you ain't trying. Whatever. I don't know.
I may
but
or
I'm
may
saying,
not have cheated on a few tests.
I don't know.
No idea.
Thankfully, I wasn't there, because if I was, I would have
You
told.
would have reported.
I
You
had
would
to,
have
man.
reported.
I would have had to.
I'm sure
I
you
would
would
have had to, man.
because it would have been a disgrace.
to the university. And so what I'm saying is, I think that. So I guess now that we know what happens now, do the kids get kicked out?
Well,
are the
that was
parents-
interesting because I was watching something. I think it was University of California's president. Somebody was talking. It's been several people on several shows, and they were saying, well, the kids weren't aware. I'm like, if your grades and your scores are good enough to get you into some of these Ivy League type schools, you know that. If you've been making, and I don't know what type of grades they were getting, but if you were getting C's in high school, that you're not miraculously going to get an offer to go to Yale or USC or something like that. So I'm pretty sure the kids knew too.
So what was the crime? So let me ask you this. So looking at the whole
I
situation.
think they charged that there was a mastermind. There was a guy that was kind of the ringleader that was taking money, and then they would pay him, and then he would in turn pay other officials and coaches and stuff like that. So I think they charged him under RICO.
Yeah, and I heard I heard a couple of different scenarios. One scenario in which they had a proctor who would issue the exam, right?
Proctor.
And you would change answers or change whatever the situation may be. And then another situation where they actually had someone stand in for them and take the exam. You know, both of those are clear-cut travesties, you know. But what I'm thinking of
today,
is it wrong to peddle influence? If my parents, you know, we see it all the time at universities. You know, my parents donate this amount of this to build a building.
Yeah.
And now that building holds my last name as a student. So do you think what was their names? The Obama children, Malia and Sasha. Do you think that the Obamas influenced got them into where or they were just great students?
Well, I'm from all accounts they were great students, but being a great student is not enough. You know, when you're talking about these high-end institutions where there's only limited slots. So no doubt their name helped them, and you know how much it helped, I don't know. You know, I don't know.
Did you see
but
that?
I agree that there's too much. The educational system is garbage in that even if you're not bribing someone, right? If you've got some poor kid from the projects that's working hard trying to get good grades, and then you got people over here that can pay for tutors and practice tests and all this type of stuff. You know what I'm saying? It gives them a clear-cut advantage. They're already going to much better schools, right? So the education system in general is a joke. But despite all that, I mean, it was like bribery and...
It's probably not relevant, but probably a few years ago, you know, there was the internet sensation, a video going around with who was the oldest girl, Malia, and she had the reefer and the beer.
Reefer?
You guys remember that?
Word reefer.
The weed.
Did you guys
She
had the weed. And
Was it reefer or was
allegedly
it a
she was
cigarette?
smoking.
No,
it was weed.
Yeah, she had the weed and
Yeah,
the
she's
beer.
been spotted with cigarettes too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw the cigarette one. I didn't see the marijuana.
You
What about it?
You remember that?
I don't remember.
Do you think you know her parents' influence was able to make some of that go away? You know,
I'm no doubt it was. Well, but that stuff shouldn't be a big deal anyway. That we've got to get over this.
What shouldn't be a big deal?
Marijuana. We've got to get over this
Underage
idea
drinking and illegal drug use.
Well, underage drinking is one thing. Now, having said that, who sets the age limit for drinking?
I didn't ask.
Right.
It's
So
the same person who sets the speed limit and puts up the
that's
handicap
what I'm saying.
parking
So
decals.
there's a little. I don't. In general, I don't like that someone says, okay, you got to be 21 to drink, but you can go into the armed forces at 18, right?
Oh, so you want to just disband the drinking, the legal age of drinking?
Well, I think if you're old enough at 18 to go to war, I think you can drink a beer.
Be able to drink at 18.
I mean, that's just me. But what I was saying about marijuana is that it should be legal, and that would solve a lot.
Start a ballot initiative, man.
Well, it's kind of already started, but it's
to
just,
change it to 18. The legal drinking age to 18
in Alabama. You think that's going to
happen? Is that where you live?
You think that's going to happen?
I don't know.
I wanted just to get to your initial point when you were talking about why them paying the money. I think it's a standard that they want to keep to make sure, you know, they've been in Hollywood so they can say, oh, Susie is at USC or Harvard, even though she might be an F student. I think that's why they possibly spent the money. Of course,
sure.
And who doesn't want the best for their kids, regardless if they're sucky kids?
Yeah, I'm sure that means it means something when you've got Yale or Harvard or USC or whatever on your resume. You know, even if you aren't very smart. I mean, George Bush wasn't very smart. No, I'm just saying. But he came from a dynasty family. So I mean, getting a degree doesn't make you smart anyway.
We're looking at such the big picture of it. You know, how many students have paid another student to do a paper? You know,
well, that's an integrity. That's an integrity issue.
Is that not the same?
No, it's not the same as what we're talking about here because this was an organized effort to fraud.
Oh, because there were two or more people involved.
I told you they did it under. They did it under
I
RICO.
know what you told me, but what I'm saying is wrong is wrong.
Yeah,
right?
But there's still
different levels of wrong. If I'm a student and I'm paying a smart kid to write my paper for me, right? Isn't that the same? Isn't that the same difference?
It's not the same, Sam.
It's not.
It's not the same as someone bribing someone.
Oh, because you paid $60 and she paid $6 million.
Bribing a coach to say that their son or daughter is playing soccer when they don't even play soccer, so they could get on the school.
I didn't
That's
say
totally different, dude.
say you paid someone to play soccer. I said
These are the
paper.
things that took place in that scandal.
Well,
You don't know what's going on here?
Well, no. Also, I said that I knew of 2 forms where a proctor would take the test and change or correct the answers, and then they would have someone take the test for them.
Okay.
Right? And to me, if paying someone to do your paper, to me, is the same as paying someone to take your test. You know, it might take a little bit more than $60 to get someone to take your college pre-exam test for you. It might cost $6 million depending on the school.
Well, what I'm saying is it's a whole scandal because you have to go in and show identification to take the test. So there was more than just someone going in and paying someone to take a test.
Should the parents be prosecuted?
Yeah, there should be a penalty.
Should they be prosecuted?
We're a nation of laws.
I mean, we
so there should be-
prosecuting Jussie. Y'all want to prosecute
There should be
Jussie?
He got off. Let these folks off too.
There should be penalties.
So what? They lost their money, you know.
There should be penalties. The kids should have to retest and see if they meet the standard to get into school.
agree
If
with
not,
that.
they should have to go to another school that they qualify for.
And should the
Fair,
parents
fair.
see jail time?
Well, I wouldn't go to
And
jail
their
time.
careers be in
I don't know about jail time, but they should have to pay some type of fine or whatever.
I just think it's unfair for kids, you know, in a situation to where maybe they, you know, parents aren't involved, but they're, you know, they struggled their entire life to make something out of themselves and work hard to get to these Ivy League schools or an HBCU, and you have kids who've had stuff handed to them and their parents are like, here you go, free pass. It's just, I think it's just unfair.
That's true.
Just one more thing with education, and we're out of time. We got 1 minute to discuss this.
1 minute.
Well, because if I tell you 1 minute, you're gonna do 4 anyway. So I tell you 1, and hopefully you'll keep the nonsense to a minimum, right?
Go ahead, sir.
So I was watching the news conference, and I also wanted. Did Cardi B and Upset get back together?
I don't know.
Yeah,
man.
since the last time we were here, they've gotten back together.
Last time I brought this up, you got upset with me. You act like you didn't
Because
know.
I don't really want to talk about it. But
Then why'd you just bring it up? That's why I didn't bring it up.
I needed to say something that would kind of perk up your spirit.
Yeah,
man.
they're back together. Ooh, go with
They're
it.
back together. Yeah. All right, good. Well, I don't want to talk about that.
Didn't she
I
get in
want to
trouble?
talk
Didn't
about.
she get in
She
trouble?
did. Oh, that would be
she
good
did.
to end on, but go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
she
just-
did.
Well, go ahead.
Maybe next week
I was
we'll
just
talk
gonna
about that.
about Trump cutting $18 million from special needs education, but whatever. We can talk about.
You don't
Cardi
think
B.
that's important?
What?
Yeah.
That he was cutting $18 million, or was it 18?
I mean, that's your guy, man.
something like that.
He's
Wasn't
a
it
knucklehead,
18 million?
man.
Yeah, that he
He's
was
a
cut
knucklehead.
18 million from. What did you hear about that?
Yes, I heard about it.
What do you think?
It's ridiculous. What do you mean? This is not a topic to discuss. It's stupid. You shouldn't be cutting that much money from special needs.
Why?
Is that something to discuss? Are you going to
I don't
defend
know.
that?
I don't know. I mean, I've heard and read that over 90% of their funding comes from private donors and sources. So this 18 million is not even in their overall budget. It's not a grand amount. I guess it's just bad taste.
No, from what I read, it's kind of a split, but they do have a lot of support from private donors.
Over 90%.
But yeah,
But what is he
type of
gonna do with
person
18?
does that
It's just
though? In
bad
general,
taste.
yeah.
It just looks bad.
Jussie,
It just looks bad in general. Why would you do
Horrible.
it? Because $18 million is nothing to
It's not.
the federal government. So why would you even do that and make yourself? People already hate you.
We need money to build a wall, man.
Yeah, gotta get that wall. With the few minutes left, real quick, because I know
did
we got
Cardi
to at
B do?
least. Oh gosh, she talked about drug and Bill Cosby. We'll talk about that next week.
What?
And people are defending what she did because she said that's how she had to, what she had to do to survive, and she's real. So people are defending what she did, even though it was wrong.
Well, that's the double standard that you
I
have
agree.
with men and women.
I don't agree with what she said at all
Women
or
can do
did.
certain things, and and it's like, oh, no big deal.
Well, hopefully by the next podcast, Cardi B will be in jail, man.
Well, she gave an official
Because it's a
statement and said
travesty,
that
right?
that she had to do what she had to do, but
Crime, you do the time. Oh, McGruff the crime dog. You ever remember McGruff the crime dog?
Dude, we're not.
McGraw.
I do remember.
Alabama basketball, really quick.
Oh, yeah.
How y'all feeling about that as we wrap up?
Man, they've got kids, 2 or 3 kids that are going to transfer too now.
Petty.
Well, Petty, one from
Yeah,
Huntsville.
Petty.
Mhm.
Yeah,
declared
they.
Scott.
I mean, I don't know what they wanted Avery Johnson to do in this time frame he's been there. Alabama basketball hasn't been anything for I don't know how long.
But they had a good year, not so bad year, maybe a year or two ago, right?
What I'm saying is, do you think he's going to go from them being a mediocre program to being in the Final Four in like 2 years,
Yeah,
3 years?
yeah,
I mean,
right.
give the man 4 or 5 years to build a program.
They were talking about he has a real strong recruiting class this year. Alabama, he's no longer a part of the organization.
Well,
Alabama,
they're not going to get all those recruits now.
No.
He sat on the
right.
couch and talked to them and talked to their parents.
Yeah,
So now they're going to be like, well, Johnson's gone, I'll go somewhere else.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what they're doing down there. Unless it's football, I don't know what.
I don't think they like black people down there, man.
Well, they like the black athlete, but we'll talk about that at another time too. You've been listening to the Two Opinionated Brothers podcast with Smart Jarvis and Big Sam. Don't forget to like the Facebook page and follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Two Opinionated Brothers, and subscribe to our YouTube and SoundCloud at Two Opinionated Brothers.